I stood in the hallway outside my own unit, holding a box of personal effects while my replacement sat at my desk. She was 23 years old. She had just finished her clinical rotation 6 months ago. I had supervised that rotation. I had signed off on her paperwork, and now she was sitting in my chair, scrolling through my patient files while I held a cardboard box filled with the framed certificates and the coffee mug my night shift team had given me for my 15th anniversary. I didn't knock. I just watched through the glass. She had her back to me, her blonde ponytail swinging as she moved the mouse. The computer screen glowed blue, and then she did something that made my stomach drop. She opened a medication chart. She highlighted a line. The timestamp on the screen read 7,008 in the morning, 2 minutes before my shift officially ended. I pulled out my phone. I took a picture of the screen with the line still visible. Then she pressed delete. The line vanished. She saved the blank space and closed the file. I put my phone away. I walked back to the elevator. I did not go into that office. I did not say a word. If this story moves you, please consider subscribing to Revenge Lily. Now let me tell you the rest. The morning it started, I was in a different kind of meeting. Mark Hollister had called me into his office at 9:30 a.m. on Monday, March 4, 2024. I thought it was about the upcoming state licensing board audit. I had been preparing for it for weeks, organizing every chart, every dosage log, every training record for the past 18 years. Mark closed the door. He didn't ask me to sit. Clara, he said, I'm making a change in the unit. I waited. You've been a great nurse, but let's be honest. Your methods are outdated. We need fresh eyes, people who understand modern systems. I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. Tiffany will be taking over your position, he said. We're reassigning you to the night shift in the East Wing. Tiffany, his niece, the girl I had taught how to start an IV. You're replacing me with your niece, I said. It wasn't a question. I'm replacing you with a nurse who understands electronic records, he said. The hospital is moving forward. You need to accept that. I accepted it. I signed the transfer papers. I emptied my desk. I did it all without raising my voice. That's what people don't understand about nurses. We don't panic. We observe. We document. We wait. I carried my box to the East Wing at 7005 that evening. Diane Kowalski was waiting for me at the nurses' station. Clara, she said, her voice low, what happened? I was replaced by Mark's niece, I said. Diane's face went still. That girl can't run a unit. She's running mine. Diane looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, You know I've got your back. I nodded. I didn't tell her about the photo on my phone. Not yet. I left my box on the break room shelf and drove home. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the timestamp. 7008, 2 minutes before my shift ended. A medication chart with a deleted line? I didn't know what medication it was. I didn't know who the patient was. I didn't know why Tiffany had deleted it. But I knew something was wrong. I had taught that girl. I had watched her fumble through her first catheter insertion, her first blood draw, her first emergency response. She was careless. She was fast with a keyboard but slow with a stethoscope. And now she was deleting records. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot at 6:30 p.m. I pulled up the photo on my phone. 7038. The chart number was partially visible. I zoomed in. Room 312. Patient, Eleanor Vance. Eleanor Vance was an 82-year-old woman with diabetes and congestive heart failure. I had checked her medication at 7,000. It was correct, but someone had deleted a line from her chart after I signed off. I took a deep breath. I put my phone in my glove compartment. I walked into the hospital for my night shift, my first shift in the East Wing, and I started watching. I had a photo on my phone. But I had no idea how deep the cover-up would go. The night shift in the East Wing was quiet. Too quiet for a hospital. Most patients were asleep by midnight, and the hallway lights were dimmed to a soft yellow. I liked it that way. It gave me time to think. But I wasn't there to think. I was there to watch. I had access to the main unit system, same login credentials, same patient records. Mark had been too lazy or too arrogant to revoke my permissions. That was his first mistake. On Wednesday, March 6, I clocked in at 7:15 p.m. Diane Kowalski met me at the nurses' station. She handed me a cup of coffee and a look that said more than words. You hear what happened in your old unit? She asked. I've been out of the loop, I said. Tiffany gave Eleanor Vance in room 312 the wrong dose of insulin. 30 units instead of 15, double what the chart said. I set the coffee down. My hand was steady, but my stomach was not. What happened to the patient? She crashed. They caught it in time. Dr. Patel had her moved to the ICU for observation. Then Tiffany? Diane leaned closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. She altered the digital record to show you administered it. At 7:30 a.m. Before you left your shift. I remembered that morning. I had checked Eleanor Vance at 7:30. Her insulin was correct. I had signed off and walked out the door at 7:50. The timestamp on Monday's chart was real. The line I signed was real. I had a photo of the original Monday entry before Tiffany deleted it. But that was Monday. This was Wednesday. The same patient. A different record, a different crime. How do you know this? I asked. I work the night shift in that unit too. I saw her open the record at 8:15 a.m. She was the only one logged in. Mark was watching her do it. My jaw tightened. Mark knows. He knows, Diane said, and he's protecting her. He told Dr. Patel it was a system error. Said the timestamp glitched. Dr. Patel was not happy, but he believed it. I did not say anything. I just nodded. That night, I started my own investigation. I pulled up the electronic records for every patient Tiffany had touched since March 4. I took screenshots of the original timestamps at the exact moment I viewed them, before she could change them, before anyone could delete them. I had saved one photo from Monday, but these screenshots would cover Wednesday and beyond. I saved each screenshot to a folder on my phone. Then I backed it up to a cloud account Mark did not know about. Thursday night, I found another error. Tiffany had charted a medication for a patient who was asleep at the time. No witness, no signature, just her initials and a time that could not have been real. Friday, I found a third. She had skipped a dose of blood pressure medication for a patient in room 218. The next morning, the patient's heart rate spiked. She charted it as administered. It was not. By Friday, March 27, I had documented 7 errors. 7 separate incidents. Every single one appeared to have been covered up. And I suspected Mark was pulling the strings. I started collecting paper charts too. The hospital had switched to digital in January, but they still printed backup copies of every record for the first 6 months. A safeguard against system errors. Those paper backups were kept in storage. My signature, my handwriting, my initials. The dates and times I actually administered the medications. I found the backup chart for Eleanor Vance on March 6. The handwritten original proved the digital entry had been altered. I saved copies of every paper chart I could find. I kept them in a folder in my locker, not locked, hidden, behind my winter coat and a stack of textbooks I had not touched in years. Diane caught me in the break room one morning. She closed the door. "Clara, listen to me," she said. "Mark knows you're watching. He told Tiffany to keep her distance from you." "She should be keeping her distance from patients," I said. "I'm serious. He will fire you if he finds out what you're doing." "Then let him try." Diane shook her head. "You're too good for this." "You know that, right? You trained her. You made her what she is. And she's throwing it all away." I did not answer. I just opened my phone and checked the folder. 7 screenshots, 7 incidents, 1 patient who almost died. I looked at Diane. "I need to know how high the cover-up goes." She met my eyes. "Higher than you think." I had 7 incidents documented. But I needed to know how high the cover-up went. The announcement came on Monday morning, March 25th. I was in the break room, pouring my 3rd cup of coffee, when Diane walked in with her phone in her hand. "You need to see this," she said. She turned the screen toward me. An email from the state licensing board sent to all department heads. An unannounced audit. Starting today. I read it twice. My hands were steady. "They're here?" "They arrived at 8. They're in the administrative offices right now, pulling records." I took a sip of coffee. "Good." Diane looked at me. "Clara, the digital records." "Ling. Tiffany has been altering those for 3 weeks. If the board opens them, they're going to see her changes. But they're also going to see your name on that insulin error." I set my cup down. "That's the point." She stared at me. "You want them to find it?" I want them to find everything. My phone rang at 9014. Mark Hollister's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring twice, then answered. Clara, he said. His voice was smooth, controlled. I need you in my office. Veneta. When I'm on my way. He was standing behind his desk when I walked in. Tiffany sat in the chair across from him, her leg bouncing. She looked pale. Mark's smile was tight. Clara, thank you for coming so quickly, he said. I'm sure you've heard about the audit. Gotti? Good. Then you know this is a critical moment for the hospital. The board is going to review every record from the past 6 months. I need someone who knows the system inside and out to help Tiffany prepare the files. I did not blink. You want me to help Tiffany? Tiffany is still learning the digital system. You've been here 18 years. You know where everything is stored. It's a simple administrative task. 2 days, maybe 3. Tiffany looked at me. Her smile was weak. I could really use your help, Clara. You know the records better than anyone. I thought about the 7 screenshots in my phone. I thought about Eleanor Vance and the insulin error that could have killed her. I thought about the folder in my locker, hidden behind my winter coat. I'd be happy to help, I said. Mark nodded. Excellent. Tiffany will show you what she needs. I spent the next 2 days in the storage room with Tiffany. She pulled up digital records. I showed her how to organize them by date. She asked questions. I answered them. She never noticed that I was watching her hands, noting every move she made on the keyboard. On the second day, I asked to see the paper records. Why? She said. The board might want originals, I said. It's better to have them ready. She shrugged. Whatever. The storage room was in the basement. A windowless room with metal shelves and boxes of paper charts. The hospital had switched to digital in January. The paper charts from March were supposed to have been kept current until the transition was fully verified. I walked in alone. The light flickered. The boxes were labeled by month. I found them. March, the first week of March. Inside were the original paper charts from March 6th and every day after. The ones Tiffany had falsified in the digital system, the ones she thought had been shredded. I took the box. I carried it up the stairs. I unlocked my car and placed it in the trunk. I locked the car and walked back inside. No one saw me. On Wednesday, March 27th, I walked into Mark's office at exactly 8:30 a.m. I placed an envelope on his desk. What's this? He said. My resignation, effective immediately. He laughed, a real laugh full of pleasure and surprise. You're quitting? Now? During an audit? Nga. Clara, you're 52 years old. You've been here almost 2 decades. Good luck finding a job at your age. I smiled. I already have one. The smile vanished from his face. What? I accepted a position at Riverview Medical Center. I start in 2 weeks. He stared at me. You're bluffing. Check your email. My new manager already sent the credentialing request. His face went red. You think you can just walk out? In the middle of an audit? I can. And I did. I turned and walked to the door. Clara, he said. If you leave now, I will make sure you never work in this county again. I stopped. I turned around. Mark, the board is in the building. They have your digital records, and I have something they're going to want to see. His eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I did not answer. I just smiled. Mark thought he had won. He had no idea I had just taken the one thing that could destroy him. The hearing room had 8 chairs around a long table. I counted them while I waited. It gave me something to do besides watching Mark Hollister pretend he was calm. He sat at the end of the table, 3 men from the state board across from him. Dr. Patel was there too, seated off to the side with a yellow legal pad in front of him. Mark's assistant had brought coffee. Nobody touched it. Tiffany was in the back row. I sat 3 seats away from her. She was scrolling through her phone, looking bored. She thought this was a formality. The board chair cleared his throat. He was a thin man with glasses, maybe 65. His name was Dr. Coleman. Mr. Hollister, he said. We have reviewed the digital records for your acute care unit. There are some questions. Mark leaned forward. Of course, whatever you need. Dr. Coleman held up a tablet. We are looking at the medication administration records for the period of March 3rd through March 22nd. There is a notable pattern of timestamps being adjusted. Adjusted? Mark said. He was good at sounding confused. Yes, changed, altered. Dr. Coleman passed the tablet to the man next to him. In several cases, the initial timestamp and the revised timestamp are minutes apart. In one case, 47 minutes apart. Mark shook his head. That would be a documentation error. Typographical. Our nurses make corrections all the time. It's standard procedure. Standard procedure does not involve deleting the original timestamp entirely, Dr. Kars, Coleman said. The room went quiet. I could hear the air conditioning. Mark said, I assure you the records are accurate. Then you won't mind showing us the original paper charts, the second board member said. He was younger, maybe 40. He had a voice like gravel. Paper charts. That's correct. The hospital switched to digital in January, but you are required to retain paper originals for 2 years. They should be in storage. Mark nodded slowly. Yes, they should be. Oh, can you produce them? I will have to check the storage room. Check it now, please. Mark looked at his assistant. She left the room. I watched her go. The next 5 minutes felt like an hour. Nobody spoke. Tiffany stopped scrolling and put her phone down. She was watching the door now. The assistant came back. She was alone. She walked to Mark and leaned down to whisper. I could not hear what she said. I did not need to. Mark's face changed, not much, just a tightening around the mouth. Mr. Hollister, Dr. Coleman said. The paper charts are missing, Mark said. It appears they were misplaced during a recent reorganization. Was misplaced. A pause. Then Dr. Patel spoke for the first time. That is unfortunate, because the digital records we have received show a concerning error rate for one of your newer nurses. Tiffany sat up straighter. I followed protocol, she said. Dr. Patel did not look at her. He looked at Mark. Hollister, your niece had a provisional license. That means her records were supposed to be co-signed by a senior nurse. Clara Morrison's signature appears on several entries. That's correct, Mark said, except Mrs. Mark. Morrison was not on duty for those shifts. I felt my chest tighten. Patel had done his homework. Mark stammered. I'm not sure what you mean. Her access badge was not scanned into the unit on those dates. Security logs confirm it. The silence was deeper now. Absolute, Coleman said. Where is Mrs. Four? Morrison now? Hugh, I'm right here. I stood up. Every head turned. Mark's eyes went wide. He looked like he had seen a ghost. Mrs. Morrison. Doctor, you are not scheduled for this hearing. I know, I said, but I have something you asked for. I walked to the table. I was holding a cardboard box. It was not heavy, just paper, 2 folders, a binder clip, and 3 stacks of charts. I set the box down in front of Dr. Coleman. The original paper charts, I said, signed and filled out by me on every shift. The timestamps are in my handwriting. They match the times I actually worked. Dr. Coleman looked at the box, then at me. How did you get these? I removed them from storage last week, before the audit. You removed evidence? I preserved evidence. There is a difference. Mark stood up. This is insubordination. She stole hospital property. Dr. Coleman held up a hand. Sit down, Mr. Gutter. Mark did not sit. He was breathing hard. She's lying. She planted those. I opened the box. I took out the top folder. I laid it flat on the table. Page 1, I said. Patient Eleanor Vance. March 6th. I verified the correct insulin order at 7:03 a.m. My handwriting, my signature. It says, order verified, 15 units, no administration recorded under my name. Because I never gave that shot. I pulled out a second page. Digital version. Same patient, same date. It says Clara Morrison administered 30 units of insulin at 7:30 a.m. See the discrepancy? The paper chart shows I verified the order. The digital chart shows I administered a dose I never touched. I pulled out a third page. Tiffany's handwritten notes from her own chart, dated the same day. She wrote insulin, 15 units in her own hand at 7,000 p.m. She also wrote the time of the error, 7,000 a.m. She knew she gave 30 units instead of 15. She just blamed it on me. Dr. Coleman took the papers. He compared them. He handed them to the second board member. He handed them to Dr. Patel. Nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, Dr. Coleman looked up. Hollister, were you aware of these discrepancies? Mark did not answer. His face was gray. Hollister! I thought the digital records were secure. That is not an answer. Mark swallowed. I trusted my staff. Which staff? Dr. Patel asked quietly. Your niece? Or Mrs. Morrison? Mark said nothing. Coleman turned to me. Mrs. Morrison, why did you remove these charts from storage? Because I knew they would disappear if I left them there. Someone has been altering digital records. I had to protect the originals. Who was altering them? I looked at Tiffany. She was staring at her lap. The same person who sat at my desk on March 4th and deleted a line from a medication chart at 7:58 in the morning. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. Coleman nodded slowly. He looked at the papers in his hand. Morrison, we will need to keep these charts. They're yours. Well, thank you. He set them down. Then he stood up. I think we have enough to proceed. Hollister, Ms. Hollister, you will be contacted with our findings. This hearing is adjourned. He walked out. The second board member followed. Patel hesitated at the door. He looked at me. You did the right thing, Clara. I know, I said. He left. Mark sat down. He did not look at me. He did not say a word. Tiffany started crying. Soft hiccuping sounds. She was still looking at her lap. I did not stay. I walked out of the hearing room and into the hallway. The board had taken the charts. They asked me to wait outside. I found a chair near the elevators. I sat down. I did not know if they would believe me, but I knew the truth was on paper. I sat outside the hearing room for 26 minutes. The clock on the wall ticked loud enough that I could count each second if I wanted to. I did not want to. I watched people walk past. Nurses in scrubs. Administrators in suits. Nobody looked at me. I was just a woman in a chair with an empty cardboard box at her feet. The door opened at 11,042. Dr. Patel stepped out first. He saw me, nodded once, and walked toward the elevators. He did not say anything. That told me more than words could. The second board member followed. He glanced my direction, then looked away. He had a folder in his hand, the same folder I had handed them an hour ago. Dr. Coleman came out last. He stopped in front of my chair. I stood up. Ms. Morrison, he said, we have reached our conclusions. I waited. Tiffany Hollister's provisional license is revoked, effective immediately. She cannot practice nursing in this state pending a full investigation by the board. I nodded. The hospital will be fined $60,000 for failure to maintain accurate medical records and for gross negligence in supervision. $60,000. I thought about the budget cuts Mark had announced last year, the ones that eliminated the night shift differential, the ones that delayed the new ventilators for 6 months. Mark Hollister has been placed on administrative leave pending a separate investigation. Dr. Cost, Coleman said, I cannot discuss the details of that investigation with you. I understand, I said. Thank you for your cooperation. He held out his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm, brief. Then he walked away. I stood in the hallway alone. The hearing room door was still open. I could see the table inside, the chairs. The water pitcher, empty now. I turned and walked toward the exit. The elevator doors opened at the ground floor. I stepped out. I was halfway to the main entrance when someone called my name. I stopped, turned. Mark's assistant. I had seen her in the hall plenty of times. Late 30s, brown hair, always wore a cardigan. I did not know her name. Mark asked me to give you this, she said. She handed me a business card. Her hand was shaking. What is it? He wants you to call him. He says they need you back. Interim Director of Acute Care until things settle down. I looked at the card. Mark Hollister, Hospital Director. His cell number printed in small letters beneath the office line. Tell him no, I said. Excuse me? Tell him I appreciate the offer, but I have already accepted a position elsewhere. She blinked. He said you might say that. He said to tell you they would match any salary offer. I thought about the signing bonus. The $85,000 a year. The respectful treatment I had received at Riverview Medical Center. The director who had called me personally to say they would be honored to have someone with my experience on their team. Tell him I am sorry, I said, but I have moved on. She waited. You should have thought about that before you called me outdated. I said it quietly. Evenly, no anger, just a statement of fact. She did not respond. She just stood there holding the card. I walked out of the hospital. The parking lot was bright. April sun. Warm for Ohio in early spring. I got into my car and sat for a moment. I looked at the building in my rearview mirror. 18 years. 18 years of night shifts, holiday rotations, code blue drills. I started the engine. I drove home. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. A number I did not recognize. I answered anyway. Clara? Diane. She sounded breathless. I heard, she said. The whole hospital is buzzing. Tiffany is in Mark's office crying. Someone said the board took her license. They did, I said. Good. She paused. I could hear voices in the background. A nurse calling for a bed, a phone ringing. Mark is in a meeting with legal, Diane said. Apparently the hospital board is already asking questions. They want to know how this was allowed to happen on his watch. I did not respond. Clara, are you coming back? Where are you going? Riverview Medical Center. I start Wednesday. She let out a breath. They do not deserve you. But Riverview is lucky to get you. Thank you, Diane. Take care of yourself. Oot too. I hung up. I sat in my car in the driveway. The engine clicked as it cooled. I looked at the house I had lived in for 12 years. The same house I had left every morning at 6 a.m. for the early shift. The same house I had come home to at 8 a.m. after every night shift. I went inside. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table and watched the sun move across the floor. The phone rang again at 2:17 p.m. Same number. Ms. Morrison, this is Patricia Vance from the board office. Coleman asked me to send you a formal acknowledgement of your cooperation in today's hearing. Lake. The report will be finalized within 30 days. You will receive a copy for your records. I appreciate that. She paused. Is there anything else I can help you with? No, that covers everything. I hung up. I looked at the box of personal effects on the kitchen counter, the one I had carried out of the hospital on March 4. I had not opened it since that day. I opened it now. The framed certificate, the coffee mug, the photo of my old team from 3 years ago. Diane standing next to me, a group of nurses I had trained over the years. I set the photo on the windowsill. Then I reached for my new badge. Riverview Medical Center, my name printed below the logo. Senior nurse, acute care. I clipped it to my collar. It felt light against my chest. Familiar. I did not know what would happen next. The board would finish the investigation. Mark would face questions. Tiffany would have to find a new career. The hospital would pay its fine and try to rebuild. None of that was my problem anymore. I looked at the photo on the windowsill again. Diane, the others. The unit I had helped build over 18 years. I had done my part. I looked at my new badge. The hospital across town had given me a raise and a signing bonus. But I knew this was not over. I had been at Riverview Medical Center for about 6 months when Diane called me on a Tuesday night in October. I was home, eating dinner alone, watching the news with the volume low. I nearly didn't answer. But something made me pick up. You're not going to believe this, she said. She told me the hospital had lost its accreditation for 1 year. Not just a warning, not a probationary period. Full loss. That meant no Medicare reimbursements. No new admissions without transfer agreements. The emergency room would divert ambulances to other hospitals. It was the kind of hit that took years to recover from. Diane said the staff found out through an email from the board of directors. Mark had not addressed them directly. He had not even shown up that day. I set down my fork. What about Mark? Fired, she said. Board voted unanimously. They brought in an interim director from the regional office. He starts Monday. I did not say anything for a moment. I felt something unspool in my chest. Not satisfaction, not exactly relief, something closer to confirmation. The system had worked the way it was supposed to. Eventually. Good, I said. That was all. Diane paused. They asked about you, you know. Some of the nurses, they said the place feels different without you. I thanked her. We talked for another few minutes. She told me half the night shift had updated their resumes. The interim director had already announced a full review of the acute care unit. Several nurses had come forward to HR about records they had seen Tiffany alter. It was a flood now. Everyone had suddenly remembered something. I hung up and sat in the quiet of my kitchen. The news was still playing. I did not hear it. Then, in November, I received an email from HR. It had a subject line I did not expect. Applicant review, request for input. I opened it. The body was standard corporate language. A former colleague had applied for a position in our acute care unit. Because of prior employment history with this individual, my feedback was requested. I was asked to complete a brief evaluation form. Yes or no questions. A comment box at the bottom. I scrolled down. Tiffany Hollister. I sat back in my chair. She had moved across the state. She had applied for a job in a hospital 60 miles from where she had lost her provisional license. Maybe she thought the distance would reset her reputation. Maybe she thought no one would check. I read the application summary. She had listed her previous position at Community Hospital of Oakwood. She had not mentioned the board hearing. She had not mentioned the revoked license. She had written that she left for personal reasons. The form was simple, 5 questions. Would you recommend this applicant for hire? Do you have any concerns about this applicant's clinical competency? Have you witnessed this applicant engage in behavior that violated patient safety protocols? I answered each one, truthfully. Then I reached the comment box. I typed 6 words. Do not hire, severe safety concerns. I did not write more than that. I did not need to. HR would pull the board findings. They would see the public record. My comment was a trigger, not an accusation. It would stop the application cold. I hit submit. The confirmation screen appeared. I closed my browser. I thought about the hallway on March 4, the box in my hands. The photo on my phone, the way she sat at my desk like she owned it. The way Mark had smiled when he said my methods were outdated. I thought about Eleanor Vance, who never knew how close she came to a fatal dose. I thought about the $60,000 the hospital had paid. The accreditation lost, the careers damaged, the trust broken, and I thought about how I had not raised my voice once. I had not screamed. I had not cried. I had simply brought the truth to a table and let it speak for itself. My phone buzzed. A text from Diane. Mark is working at a clinic in Pennsylvania. Heard it's a 5-year non-compete violation. His lawyer is trying to settle. I typed back. Thanks for telling me. I drove home that evening with the windows down and the radio off. The copies of the paper charts were still in my trunk. The originals had stayed with the board after the hearing. I had not decided what to do with the copies yet. Keep them, I thought, just in case. April melted into May. May into June. I settled into the rhythm at Riverview. I trained 3 new nurses in my first 6 weeks. 2 of them were fresh out of school. One had transferred from a different hospital and said she had never had a proper orientation. I showed them how to read a medication administration record. How to spot a dose that looked wrong. How to speak up when something did not feel right. Always check the original, I told them. If it does not match what you see on the screen, ask why. Oh. Returning to the months after the April hearing, I drove home that evening with the copies still in my trunk. The originals had stayed with the board. I had not decided what to do with the copies yet. Keep them, I thought, just in case. April melted into May. May into June. I settled into the rhythm at Riverview. I trained 3 new nurses in my first 6 weeks. 2 of them were fresh out of school. One had transferred from a different hospital and said she had never had a proper orientation. I showed them how to read a medication administration record. How to spot a dose that looked wrong. How to speak up when something did not feel right. Always check the original, I told them. If it does not match what you see on the screen, ask why. Every time. In November, I got an email from HR. A former employee of Community Hospital of Oakwood had applied for a position in our acute care unit. The system flagged that I might have professional knowledge of the applicant. Would I be willing to submit an evaluation? I opened the attachment, Tiffany Hollister. Her application was clean, references from people who clearly had not been in the room. A glowing letter from Mark, written before everything collapsed. She had left Community Hospital in April and moved across the state. She was looking for a fresh start. I sat at my desk for a long time. I thought about Eleanor Vance. I thought about the 7 errors I had documented. I thought about the timestamp she had deleted at 7:58 in the morning, sitting at my desk while I held a box of my belongings. I typed into the comments box, "Do not hire. Severe safety concerns." I submitted the form and closed my laptop. HR called me the next day. They said the applicant had been withdrawn from consideration. I said, Thank you for letting me know. That Friday, I finished my shift at 7. I walked out to my car and sat for a moment with the engine off. The parking lot was quiet, the sky was gray, the kind of November evening that felt like it was holding its breath. I thought about Mark, working at a clinic in Pennsylvania, violating a non-compete. I thought about Tiffany, whose application I had just killed. I thought about the hospital across town, still picking up the pieces of its lost accreditation. And I thought about the new graduates I had trained that week. One of them, a kid named Ryan who reminded me of myself 25 years ago, had stayed late to practice starting IVs. He had missed 3 times. On the 4th try, he got it. He looked up at me and said, "I think I am getting it." "You are," I said. "You are getting it." He smiled. "Thank you, Clara." I told him he was welcome. I told him to keep practicing. I told him that the best nurses are the ones who never stop learning how to do it better. And I meant every word, because the best revenge is not a fine or a firing. It is not a revoked license or a blocked application. The best revenge is being so good at what you do that you become irreplaceable. Not because you hold secrets, not because you control information, but because you taught everyone who came after you and they remember your name. I started the car. I drove home. I had a 6 a.m. shift in the morning, and there would be new charts to check, new interns to teach, new patients who needed someone who knew what she was doing. I still have the photo on my phone. I do not look at it often. I do not need to. I know what it says. I know what it proves. And I know exactly where I was when I took it.